In 2009, Interpol received a report that made seasoned investigators go silent. Over the course of 7 years, one man had defrauded banks, corporations, and private individuals across 9 European countries, stealing a total of 43 million euros. He had used 17 different identities. He owned properties in Paris, Rome, and Amsterdam, none of them in his real name. And when they finally closed in on him, his apartment was empty. No fingerprints, no trace. It was as if a ghost had simply walked through the walls and vanished. His name, his real name, was Aleksander Voss. And this is his story. Alexander was born in 1979 in Gdansk, Poland, the youngest son of a struggling dock worker. His childhood was unremarkable on the surface. A small flat, a tired father, a mother who cleaned offices at night. But Alexander had a gift that no one around him could quite explain. He could read people. From the time he was 12, he could walk into a room and within minutes understand exactly what each person needed to hear. Teachers adored him. Neighbors trusted him with their spare keys. Local merchants let him run tabs he never paid. By 18, he had already run his first scam, selling fake concert tickets across Gdansk's weekend markets. Small money. But it taught him something important. People do not just want to believe you. They want a reason to trust you. And if you give them that reason, even a false one, they will hand you everything. He moved to Berlin in 2001 with 300 euros and a forged university certificate. Berlin in the early 2000s was a city still rebuilding itself. Investment was flooding in. Property developers were desperate for capital, consultants, connections. Alexander understood this immediately. He crafted his first major identity, Dr. Marcus Feld, a financial consultant from Zurich with ties to a Swiss private equity fund that did not exist. He dressed the part. He rented a serviced office for 3 months, printed business cards, and built a paper trail so convincing that when he walked into Deutsche Mittelstand Bank in 2002 and presented a loan proposal for a commercial property development in Leipzig, the senior manager shook his hand and called him a visionary. The loan was approved for 1.2 million euros. Alexander disappeared 4 days after the funds cleared. Dr. Marcus Feld was never found, because he had never existed. Over the next 5 years, Alexander became something unprecedented. He was not just a con artist, he was an architect of false realities. In Amsterdam, he posed as an offshore oil logistics director and defrauded 3 shipping companies out of 8 million euros in fake service contracts. In Madrid, he infiltrated a luxury real estate firm, won the trust of the partners, and redirected client escrow funds into shell accounts in Cyprus. In Milan, he posed as a Vatican-affiliated art acquisitions agent and sold forged provenance documents to collectors buying stolen Renaissance pieces. Every city, every identity, perfectly researched, perfectly executed. He spoke 5 languages. He moved between countries before any single jurisdiction could connect the dots. And crucially, he was generous. He threw dinners. He gave gifts. He made the people around him feel special, important, chosen. That generosity was the weapon. Because nobody suspects the man who just bought them a 300 euro bottle of wine. By 2007, Alexander was living what appeared to be a legitimate life in Paris. He had a penthouse apartment near the Marais. A French girlfriend who believed he ran an international consulting firm. Neighbors who waved at him in the mornings. A cleaner who came on Tuesdays. But beneath that life, he was running his most ambitious operation yet. He had established a fake private investment fund, Voss Capital Partners, and was actively recruiting wealthy European investors. Within 18 months, he had raised 11 million euros from 42 investors across France, Belgium, and Luxembourg. The fund's quarterly reports were immaculate. Fabricated, but immaculate. Investors were receiving regular statements showing healthy returns. None of them knew that their money was already gone, moved through a labyrinth of shell companies in Cyprus, Malta, and the British Virgin Islands. He was, by any measure, at the top of his game. And then he made one mistake. In late 2007, a retired Belgian magistrate named Henri Claes invested his life savings, 400,000 euros, into Voss Capital Partners. When Henri's son, a junior prosecutor in Brussels, ran a routine background check on the firm as a birthday gift to his father, he found something strange. The registered address in Geneva was a forwarding service. The listed directors were names that appeared nowhere in any Swiss business registry. The firm's supposed auditors had no office, no website, and no licensing record. Henri's son made one phone call to Interpol's Financial Crimes Division. That phone call opened a file that would take 2 years and 6 countries to close. The investigator assigned to the case was a French detective named Sylvie Marchand. She had spent 15 years tracking financial fraud across the EU. She later said in court that Aleksander Voss was the most sophisticated fraudster she had ever encountered. Not because his methods were technically complex, but because his psychology was perfect. He never left anyone feeling cheated while he was present. Every victim remembered him fondly, even after learning the truth. Sylvie began mapping the identities. 17 names, 17 lives built from forged documents and borrowed histories. Each one abandoned cleanly. No loose ends, no angry ex-partners, no disputed properties. Except one. In 2004, under the identity of a Dutch architect named Peter van den Berg, Alexander had rented a storage unit in Rotterdam. He had never returned to it, but he had paid the annual fee automatically, linked to a prepaid card that was itself linked to a mobile number. That mobile number had pinged a cell tower in Paris 17 times in the past year. Sylvie's team cross-referenced the tower data with CCTV footage from a pharmacy near the Marais. In a grainy image from a Tuesday morning in March 2009, a man matching Alexander's general description purchased medication using a French loyalty card registered to a name that did not match his current identity, but that shared a date of birth with Aleksander Voss. It was a small crack. But in fraud investigation, small cracks are everything. On the morning of November 14, 2009, Sylvie Marchand and a joint team of French and Belgian officers entered the Marais apartment. Alexander was sitting at his kitchen table eating breakfast, reading Le Monde. He looked up at the officers calmly. He did not run. He did not shout. He simply folded the newspaper, placed it on the table, and said, in perfect French, that he would like to call his lawyer. The lawyer, it turned out, was also operating under a fake identity. But that is a separate story entirely. The trial lasted 11 months. 42 victims testified. 9 countries submitted evidence. Alexander's defense team argued that several of the transactions had been consensual and poorly documented, a strategy that managed to reduce some charges but ultimately failed against the weight of evidence Sylvie's team had assembled. He was convicted in Brussels in 2011 on 28 counts of fraud, forgery, and money laundering. He was sentenced to 19 years in prison. Of the 43 million euros stolen, investigators recovered just under 9 million. The rest had moved through too many layers, too many jurisdictions, too many dead ends to trace completely. Several shell companies in Cyprus are still technically active today, dormant, empty, and registered to men who do not exist. Henri Claes, the Belgian magistrate whose son made the first phone call, never recovered his savings. He passed away in 2015. His son attended the trial every single day. What makes the story of Aleksander Voss so unsettling is not the scale of the crime. It is the ease of it. He did not hack systems. He did not bribe officials. He did not threaten anyone. He simply understood human nature better than most people understand themselves, and he used that understanding like a scalpel. Sylvie Marchand, now retired, gave one interview after the trial. She was asked what she thought when she finally sat across from Alexander in the interrogation room. She paused for a long moment. Then she said, "He was the most charming person I have ever met in my life, and I hope I never meet anyone like him again." Aleksander Voss is scheduled for release in 2028. No one knows what name he will be using.